Welcome to RecWired LinkedIn Live. Today we're joined by Faiers from Addictivity, and we were due to be joined by Gibbard from Recbound. Unfortunately, can't make it due to a family issue, but wish him and his family well, and we'll do something in a couple of weeks before Christmas just to let Rich have his say on the subject. So thanks for taking the time out, Alex. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Yeah. Shame Rich couldn't join us. You'll have to suffer for me, just with me today.
Not a problem. You just have to work twice as hard, like everyone in marketing at the moment. So Alex, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. So just briefly, I run Addictivity. We're a digital marketing agency. We've been going just over 25 years. We just specialize in this space, in this sector. So we only work with recruitment companies. We do recruitment websites, digital marketing, and we tend to work with the more established agencies. I'd say sort of 5 to 50 million in annual turnover. That's our sweet spot. That's what we do.
Fantastic. And you have two sort of hats as well. You've also got your Rec Sites business, which works for the
Yeah, 3 hats, unfortunately. I like to keep myself busy. So we acquired Rec Sites this time last year, which is the sort of startup scale-up end of this industry. So 1 to 15 in terms of headcount for recruiters. So Rec Sites is a sort of off-the-shelf template recruitment website SaaS business. I also work with a coaching organization in the US called DigitalOcean with you gurus, coaching other digital agencies in our space as well. So, yeah, fingers in a few pots.
Definitely keeping busy. And you've recently been out to New York as well. How was that?
It was amazing. Thanks. Yeah, it was really cool. I was there for a week in October. Again, with you gurus doing some training for 100 other agency owners. So it was really cool.
So everyone looks to the States for what's going to happen in the UK. So what's the vibe out there?
The vibe was really good, very upbeat, and everything was just AI this, AI that, AI everything at the moment. But lots of optimism. Of course, this wasn't around recruitment. This is just around digital marketing in general. So I think they've had a better year than most over here.
Fantastic. That's good to hear, because what goes on there normally comes here, and vice versa. So what we wanted to talk about was really, here we are, end of November. It's been a tough year in recruitment, and I think we've seen a lot of companies, find it difficult this year, and have had to take some tough decisions. And one of the things we've talked about this year has been, I think companies have paused or stopped their digital marketing effort. They're out. A lot of their out. And one of the things I know we've also, is just how counterintuitive almost that is. And appreciate people go and make difficult decisions, but it's almost we haven't got the jobs coming in, so we're going to turn this off. And whereas actually that's one of your key sources of getting those jobs in. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. Firstly, I sympathize with anyone that's had a difficult year. So we've had clients this year that have really struggled, that have had no choice, and they've had to scale back. And marketing traditionally is one of those first things that can go. It's easy to cut. You might think of cutting marketing before you cut any billers, for example. So some people have scaled back. We've had clients put our campaigns on pause. We've had some clients cancel. We've had actually some clients go out of business this year. So for many, it has been a struggle. So, I don't want to stand here today and say, don't do the counterintuitive stuff. You've got to be marketing all the time. Sometimes it's just not possible, and we get that. But I think for the basis of this conversation today, let's assume that you do have the means and you're just concerned and maybe thinking of dialing it back, and what that could mean to your marketing efforts. Because really, marketing is a consistent struggle. People, I think, have unrealistic expectations of marketing a lot of the time. Some people think it's, this magic bullet. I just have to spend a little bit, and very quickly I'm going to get my ROI, and off we go, and we scale. And it's very rarely the case. We talk a lot, I'm sure we'll talk today, about ROI and the myth of ROI with digital marketing these days. So I think it's the expectations piece as well. often we'll find people will dabble, they'll have a little go, they'll ask their marketing assistant or their marketing manager to do all of these things, and invariably it won't work first time, so they give up. So marketing, it's a cliche, but it's a marathon. It's it's not a quick little sprint and get magic results. It's about being consistent, and it's going beyond what sometimes people think is the direct tangible results, which you might have if you run paid ads, for example, which everyone should be doing if you can. But beyond that, it's very difficult to measure your sort of brand equity, your brand authority, how much authority you have in a market. It's difficult to put a number on that. But dialing back or pausing is basically a massive reset. Your momentum goes to zero. So it really does need, if you have the means, it needs to be a long-term investment. It needs to be consistent. And if you put these things on pause, it's very difficult to get them back up and running quickly. But I think, as well as that counterintuitive aspect of things, I think one area where a lot of people struggle with is thinking that it's a tactics first approach. So, let's hire, we've got to 15 or 20 staff, let's hire a marketing junior, and let's expect the world. We should do a podcast. Let's write more blogs. Well, we should probably do SEO. Who's running paid ads? And it's this tactic first approach. I mean, you're just spreading stuff and seeing what works. And invariably, the answer to that is nothing. So what we like to bring to the table is a strategy first approach, because you've got to have this big picture approach. What are you actually trying to achieve with marketing before you start just chucking mud and seeing what sticks?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think consistency. You're gonna see it. I think in January, LinkedIn will be like the equivalent of the gym.
Yeah,
people are going to come in January, going to say, "Yeah, I'm going to post every day this year," and it's like 3 weeks in, the gyms are packed days 1, 2, 3, and by the third week, no one's there. And I think you'll see a similar thing with LinkedIn. I think with marketing outreach, that people are like, right, we're going to hit it, and then they'll just slowly, you might not, especially because you're going to be in a sea of other people starting out cranking cold start.
This is it. I think a lot of what we talk about with our clients is building authority. And you can't do that overnight. You can't just turn that on January the 3rd or whenever it is and build instant authority. We're back. We're ready to go. You should trust us. It's, I think recruitment is moving similar to what we do in marketing. It's moving more towards being a strategic partner, a trusted advisor, rather than this commodity provider. So if you're moving more towards that, you need to build know, like, and trust in your space. And this is something that happens over time. And marketing is really often the first interaction that someone's going to have with your brand, whether they're seeing social content or video content or partner content like we're doing today, whatever it is. It's often the first part of that puzzle of building interactions over time, which are building that know, like, and trust. So you can't just expect to turn the tap on in January and have that instantly. This is why marketing should be a consistent effort. So you're building authority, you're building that trust and that position in your market, so that when people are recruiting when it's right for them, not when you want them to recruit. So one of the aspects from having a consistent marketing campaign and message is being top of mind and having that available when they're ready to engage with you, whether that's a client or a prospect. So being ready to just go all guns blazing in January might not be the best idea.
Yeah, I think it goes around that sort of consistency and building that trust. I remember when I first started working in recruitment, nobody knew who Huxley were, and it took a number of years to sort of build that. And I'm sure if you call from Huxley Associate, Huxley as it is now, then people know that. But that was I was very early in the company. That was a long road to build that trust and authority.
Yeah.
So we do have the option to take questions as well. So if anything pops up to you, so We've got Catherine says here. Alex Riley, hi. And MD Suzanne Prodan, hi. Hello to you all. So if you do want to ask a question, feel free to just click in the chat, and that will pop up on our screens, and we'll be able to answer your questions. So,
Andy, what's your take on? So we're here talking about why you shouldn't be pausing marketing. It should be consistent. If you have paused, if you have taken a step back for this year for whatever reason, why is now, in your opinion, a good time to get the ball rolling again, like right now as we head into December?
So I think it's a number of levels. First and foremost, hindsight tells you that maybe you perhaps shouldn't have, because again, probably the cost of cold starting it, not the financial cost, but probably the cost of the opportunity cost of what you've missed out in that sense. But assuming you've done it, that's a decision. People taking these decisions. First and foremost, majority of your staff aren't going to be working for a lot of December. And actually, I did a podcast the other day, and actually statistically, people are more likely to look for jobs in over the Christmas period than any other time. I think Nathan at Consortia said they had more hits on their website Christmas Day than they do any other day of the year. Wow. So people sat there. So first and foremost, who's working for you over the time. So, and anything you do now, chances are is going to impact your January. And, are you going to be front of mind to people or are you starting in January? So first and foremost, I think now is a real opportunity. I think December for me is always a reflection time as well. It's always a really good opportunity to actually have a look at your business, plan for next year, and then start that ball rolling. You want to be running through the finishing line of 2024. You don't want to be just hauling a dead corpse over it. There's a real opportunity out there. All of the metrics are saying that, it's been better in the last quarter, I think. And also as well, we feel that 2025, will steadily improve. Depending on which made-up statistic you believe, somewhere between 20 and 30% of the industry have left. So one of the things you won't be able to do as quickly is replace your headcount. So your hunters that are going out there developing business aren't as easily turned on as marketing campaigns. So I think from my perspective, now is a really, really good time. Oliver's made a really good point. Thanks, Oliver Perry, for making this point. My understanding is marketing is quite an all-encompassing term and made up of many different components. And I think absolutely spot on. What component's the most important for a recruitment company right now, Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. That's really good. I think in recruitment as an industry, there's often this case where people have sales and marketing in different buckets, in different silos, which I think doesn't really help anyone. They need to be working together. Consistently having a consistent message, but it all needs to start with strategic thinking. So there are, an unlimited amount of components that can go into an unlimited amount of marketing campaigns, but it needs to start with having a strategy. What are you actually trying to achieve? And it's different for everyone. So I had a discovery call a couple of months ago with a new recruitment company. And we worked out that their big strategic goals, their big vision was they're scaling to 100 million. So the marketing campaign for an agency that's going from 20 staff to 100 million is very different from a team of 5 who are looking to get to a team of 20, for example. Yep. Different budgets, different strategies, different ideas, different tactics, different everything. So it really depends on where you're at and what you're trying to achieve. But we always start with strategy first. So what are your big goals? And this is a great time of year to be thinking about this as we're heading to the end of the year. What are your visions for the next 3 years, the next 5 years? And then working back from that, what do you want to achieve in the next year? And then looking at goals. So for example, if you're scaling, if this is one of your goals for the next 3-5 years, is where do you want to be in the end of 2025? And what does that actually mean? So turning big picture goals into strategic goals. So if we think about digital marketing, one of your goals might be, we need to grow the business by 20%. So we're going to be relying on generating leads from our website. So one of our strategic goals might be, by the end of 2025, we want our website to be generating 5 to 6 sales qualified calls a month. Great. So that's one of the sort of strategic goals that we have from marketing. And you go through that whole process on the BD side, on the candidate side, building out very specific smart goals so that, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic. And when you have these goals, I want to generate 5 to 6 qualified leads a month from my website by this time. If that's realistic, now we can start thinking about the tactics that we're going to use and what resources we already have, what the team members are up for. Can we get your consultants on video? What is it that we have? What are the resources that we have available? And then shaping our tactics around that strategic goal or those strategic goals, rather than just going headfirst into let's do a podcast. Well, we want to get the basics in place first. We always talk about the website being the fulcrum of your marketing activity, because if you just, let's say, for example, if you just start running paid ads, and I've seen this with a client recently or an ex-client recently, we need some leads. We're going to run ads, and they run ads, and it doesn't work because you haven't got the basics in place. Yeah. So the basics, what I mean from that, so going back to Oliver's question, the fundamental components are having a website that goes beyond recruitment conversions, typical recruitment conversions, i.e. applying for a job, registering for a job, or maybe uploading a vacancy, which no one hardly ever does. So what else have you got that is going to engage people so that if you do start running ads, there's a chance that we're going to get their details. They're going to engage with us. They're going to give us their name and their email address. Because if you just have those fundamental basics, that typically they're not going to. We said earlier that recruiters recruit when they're ready, not when you want them to. And candidates are applying for jobs, on Christmas Day, or when they're ready to jump ship, not when you want them to. So if they happen to find themselves on your website from a paid ad or from any other campaign that you're running, what have you got that's going to incentivize them to give you their details? So with the basics of having sales funnels in place for prospects, BD side of the business, and for candidates that are beyond like just applying for a job. And when you have that, and when I talk about a sales funnel, for me, there are 3 component parts. So these are the things that I think Oliver should be having in his marketing strategy, is a sales funnel for the BD side and for the candidate side. And the sales funnel consists of conversion content, something of highly perceived value that solves a problem for your ICP, which is your ideal customer profile, or your ideal candidate profile. You really want to lean into solving micro problems. Let's take a hiring manager, for example. What is it that's keeping that hiring manager up at night? Do they struggle retaining staff? Do they struggle retaining the best tech talent because they're just not out there? Are they struggling with finding contractors? What are these issues that they struggle with that you, as their strategic advisor or partner, can help them solve with content? And that conversion content could be a guide or a calculator or a workshop or pretty much anything. But that's the hook. Yeah. That's the value that you're going to give, which means they'll be prepared. There's a value exchange going on. If I'm going to give you my details, I want something in return.
Yep.
Once you've done that, then the next 2 bits are marketing automation, because I've got your details. I now need to communicate with you over a period of time and continue with value, like thoughtful, helpful content around what I know your problem is. And then the last thing, the third part of a sales funnel, is to retarget. Is to get them back to the website. So let's say, carry on with the ad example. I've seen an ad, I've landed on the website, I've seen this useful tool that solves a problem, I've given you my details, you're now emailing me helpful information for the next 6, 8, 10 weeks, but also I start to see your ads everywhere I go, building the sort of brand knowledge and building up the value that I see in your brand, so that when I am ready to hire in January, or I am ready to apply for that job on Christmas Day, you're top of mind, and you've already started building that know, like, and trust relationship. So I think, Oliver, the components that you need right now are the basics. Is a website that converts, that has sales funnels. And then you can start thinking, how are we going to drive traffic to our website? We're going to run ads. We're going to do the podcasts. We're going to do newsletters. We're going to do, webinars, workshops, partner events, in-person events, whatever it might be. All marketing channels should lead back to your sales funnels because they're going to do the hard work for you. That's what I'd be looking at.
There we go. So those are the things you should be doing, Oliver. Kieran from Pager, measuring the tactical marketing stuff to the nth degree is what messes recruitment's approach to marketing. I think I'd agree with that. I think we've talked about ROI and measuring it, and there's some tangibles you can do. So we sent out an email campaign. We had this many opens. We had this many clicks. We did this many deals attributed. But there's other stuff that you do that is completely intangible. Yeah. Some of the stuff you spoke about, the 7 or 8 emails that are just building the brand, are just building the interest. So I think I'd agree with you, and I think the point you made around, I think a lot of the reason why people have paused marketing was that I think this year the strategy has changed. A lot of the strategy for this business, for businesses in our sector, was to get through it. So the strategy was survival. And I think if you're trading now and you're doing okay and you're making a small profit, you're probably doing, pretty good. And now's the time to think, right, okay, well, actually, I just don't want to survive next year. Now is the time to really be looking at that strategy.
Yeah.
Tim Davey, an interesting,
Tim.
What is more important? Is it general branding and social media, or tight, direct, targeted outreach? If you had to pick one.
Yeah. Hi, Tim. Hope you're well. Good to see you on here. They're two very different things. And the answer, annoyingly, as it always is in marketing, is it depends. It really depends. Having general branding and a presence on social media, I would say, are the basics for putting your agency out there as being a respectable brand in your space. You're trying to build up a reputation in cloud and IT infrastructure recruitment. Why do I trust you? I want you to be that expert in the space. I want you to be the go-to place for that specific type of recruitment. So the branding piece and the awareness piece on social are really important as fundamentals. We've spoken about the fundamentals of the website with sales funnels. The way that you get the message out is through social media and having a decent brand that backs up you are who you say you are. So the targeted outreach, I think, is something very different. So which is more important? I think probably the branding piece is the platform. And when you have that, is what, like I said earlier, once you've got the fundamentals in place, you can start looking at other tactics. And outreach is a tactic. Now, it's changed this year. It's been changed by AI. So I definitely recommend it, something that you do, but I wouldn't go into it blindly. We think about this in terms of potential reputational damage. So, and this depends on your market size. So, for example, we work with recruitment companies primarily in the UK. We primarily work with people that are 5 to 50 million. There aren't that many of them. If I decided to go and do outreach, cold outreach on email and blast 10,000 emails a day to that market, I'm very quickly going to potentially have reputational damage to our agency that I can't easily undo. So I would be very careful about doing that. But with AI now, you can move more into personalized, or what looks like highly personalized outreach, which can work if it's measured, if you have the basics in place, and if that outreach is giving value and getting them to come back to one of the sales funnels, then maybe there's a chance that it would work. But I'd say to Tim, probably the general branding piece first. I just want to come back to Kieran's point. Measuring the marketing stuff to the nth degree, I agree with that massively. There's only so much that you can have these, the ROI tied to. Now, don't get me wrong, we're always trying to prove an ROI with what we're doing, but sometimes it's impossible. I think one thing that you can do to bridge that gap is have an understanding across your whole agency so that the consultants know the importance of what you're doing and what your marketing team is doing. They actually know the campaigns so that they're able to give feedback. Because you could invest 3 months of time and a ton of money on doing an in-depth survey, creating a beautiful report, great data, great analysis. You could put it out there and people are reading it and they end up calling one of your consultants going, I read that survey, it was phenomenal, got me on the phone because the benchmarking bit was super useful. And your consultant's going, yeah, so how many vacancies have you got? Versus, I'm going to make sure I give that feedback to my marketing team, because I can see that that's how they've come into this funnel. But more often than not, you don't get that feedback. You invest in these pieces of work, and it's very difficult to put a number on it, on the ROI or the leads that it's generated. So it's going back to this, the continuous marketing efforts of elevating your brand and elevating your authority, making everything that you do that little bit easier over time.
No, I think I'd certainly agree with that. So a question from, or an observation, a question from Andy Foote. Do you guys prefer LinkedIn Live over LinkedIn Audio? The latter is going away. LinkedIn just announced this. I've not used LinkedIn Audio. Is that bad? I feel like it feels like, you remember Clubhouse during COVID?
Yeah, that's why it's going away.
Right, they've killed Clubhouse, have they? And so they've killed Clubhouse. They've did what they set out to achieve, and now they don't need to support it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think LinkedIn Live, right, is our preferred method. What we're doing today, I think it's brilliant that we can just spin this up fairly easily, have people live, and just interact with us and ask us questions. Is brilliant, and I think you can access the replays. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah. So I think the thing I like, we do the podcast, and I think the podcasts are we've done a podcast, Alex, before, and I think the good thing about that is that when the podcast is done, it's a sort of moment in time. It's relatively well planned, but then if it goes out, it goes out. So you can chat about various different things. Goes off, and then. But you don't get the interaction. It feels very cold. It feels like, you're just sort of there. Whereas I think on here, we're getting that constant sort of feedback. So, yeah. And I think as well, the timing of it as well. It's like, it's almost the difference between streaming and, back in the days where you had to look at the radio times. And if you wanted to watch that film, you had to commit to that time as well. So, yeah, I think there's a place for both, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think more and more being able to consume this content, and I think the thing I like about it was that we were in a discussion, myself, you, and Rich. It was a common theme that we were seeing, and it's a common question across the groups. When should I hire a marketing person? When should I start doing marketing? What type of outreach is getting the most return?
Yeah. And also, how much should I invest in marketing? And this is a common theme in this sector versus other sectors. I think the perception of how much you should be investing in marketing is a lot lower, or sometimes even non-existent in recruitment. But of course, it depends at what level you're at. It depends on the size of your business, the budget that you've got. But I know that we, as a small agency of 12, the percentage that we invest in marketing is way more than pretty much any of our clients in recruitment. It's phenomenal. So it's difficult. The benchmark that I would say as a general should be 7 to 8% of revenue, but ideally more. But of course, it depends if you're heavily in the contract business or not, but coming down to GP. But it's a constant struggle in this space, is convincing people to push their marketing budgets up. When to hire is a difficult one. We see this a lot, and there's a bit of a conundrum, because you can hire someone who's maybe a junior or has a few years of experience, and then typically what happens is you ask them to do everything.
Yeah,
you're asking them to be the expert in your specialism. So, for example, hi, marketing junior, you now need to be an expert in SAP and S4 HANA. And they're like, what? You've got to go and talk about really technical things. You've got to write blog posts about it. You've got to do social media posts about it. You need to organize our exhibitions, our PR. You've got to do internal comms, external comms, run our email. Oh, also, we need to do marketing automation, and the boss wants a podcast. And it's like...
But I think the issue actually there is you've got a relatively junior person and they've not got the ability to implement a strategy. They've neither got the skill, they've probably neither got the air cover or the confidence to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And actually what they need to do is say, which one of these 9 things,
exactly.
we can do 3.
Also, the other thing is, more often than not, they don't have anyone in the leadership team or the owners that can help them with that level of strategy and marketing. It's just like, well, that's what we've hired you for. You should just be getting on with it. So that's a difficult hire. And you go up from there to a marketing manager, a more established person, or you go to a head of marketing, and you end up investing 90 or 100 grand a year on a salary of someone really, really good. And they come in, they spend 6 months on strategy. And then they say, right, Andy, now I need the budget because I need an SEO team. I need a content team. I need someone to run this. I need someone to run that. And they're going, what? That's why we hired you. So it's very difficult, and I think there's a place for people like Rich, who's going to be on the call, and myself to kind of come in and bridge those gaps at any of those different options.
I think so. And I think within that as well, again, marketeers, if they're able to demonstrate, but this and that return on investment, that you either see marketing as a cost or as an investment. And it's very interesting you say about that sort of percentage of revenue or NFI. We actually, the reason I was sort of onto my screen on the left, we actually had a question about it in our enterprise group. So our enterprise group is 50 heads and above. And one of our members said, does anyone have a guide for marketing spend as a percentage of NFI? Theirs was 3.7, but they didn't have anything to compare it to. And what was really interesting was he's still not got anything to compare it to, because he's the only person who's ever actually looked at, I think, at that as a statistic. And it was a really interesting sort of, no one could say, we're 5%, we're 10%, we're looking to, but we feel we should grow it. There was so I don't think people look at it in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing as well is that when you're in growth mode as well, that will, Alex is off, he'll be back. So the point I was going to make, hopefully he didn't just walk the plank because I interrupted him. But what you actually find is that when you're in growth mode, you would expect potentially that percentage to be higher as you're investing in the marketing. And then gradually as the NFI comes down, you'll expect that that percentage come down as your sales come in as a result of the investments you made. So we're waiting for Alex to come back on the call. Hopefully the broadband in France hasn't gone on strike for too long, because this will just be me talking to myself, which is really, really weird. So if someone wanted to ask me a question and really help me out here, I'd be really grateful. One of the things that we were going to talk about was what can recruitment companies learn from the Jaguar rebrand? And Alex has got some quite interesting views on that. We were going to talk about, again, we've talked about the... Alex is back, thankfully.
Sorry. Living in rural France.
Yeah, French broadband went on strike.
Yeah.
So I was saying that in investment times, you'd expect the NFI to, that percentage to go up, and as you get sales in, you'd expect that to come down, sort of speculate to accumulate.
I think it's worth mentioning, we're talking a lot about sort of ROI and how difficult it is these days. I mean, there've been a lot of technical changes in the last couple of years, limiting how we can track some of this stuff, and the attribution models have changed. But it is possible, and we're always striving to prove an ROI with our clients and the marketing that we're doing where we can. And I think people, going back to an earlier point, people expect it to be quite quick and quite fast to get that ROI and to get that return. Whereas, there's this often quoted saying where marketing is really a struggle. Like literally 80% of the time it doesn't work. And you should understand the reason and lean into the 20% that does. So it's about, consistently trying. And when you find a channel that's working and you've optimized it over a period of time, then you can lean into it. So, going to our marketing spend, it's 10% of revenue, which is quite high, but I can't wait to spend more because at the moment we're dialing in a channel that's just about to give us the option to scale through paid ads. So when you get one that is working, then it's exciting about the impact of this and actually measuring that ROI and the revenue impact so that we can spend more. But that's not something that happens overnight. That's something that happens with hard work and craft and knowing your channel. Going back to the point of the poor marketing manager that has to know all of these disciplines, like paid ads is an art. You can't expect your marketing admin or manager to be able to run paid ads on AdWords for you and it work from week one.
You can expect them to do that and spend lots of money.
Yeah. It's like walking into a casino. It's exactly the same,
Absolutely. And like the things like, I don't see, I see it a lot in SaaS companies. I don't see it a lot in recruitment companies where people look at cost per customer acquisition. I mean, how many founders, hand on heart, could say right now it costs us X amount of pounds to acquire a candidate? I genuinely don't know how, who could do that.
Yeah, not many. We do try to do that. We do try to do that with the conversions that we're tracking and the monetary values that we're tracking. And we think about the lifetime value of a client and then work back from that as to the cost per acquisition that you're happy with. If a new client to you year one is worth 100 grand and I've got a shop and I sell them, how much are you prepared to spend? Like for us, I know how much we'll be prepared to spend for a client. We'll spend up to 5,000 for a client. We don't have to, thankfully, but we would because we know the lifetime value of our client. We actually know the cost per acquisition. But knowing numbers like this will help. But I think also having that wider view that this takes time, that this is hard work to get to that point. And the bigger picture, some of it is not as measurable as that. But we should always be striving for an ROI. The best that we've got at the moment is 22,000% a month.
22,000%.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
I'll just leave that there.
22,000. One of the things I did to Phil while you dropped, I said I was gonna ask you your views on should recruitment companies design a campaign like Jaguar?
Yeah. No. There's so much to unpack there. From a marketing perspective, most of this stuff is knowing your customer, knowing your customer base, knowing your ICP, knowing their problems, knowing what's important to them. And I think Jaguar do you think they've sacked their customer base? Do you think it's generally part of a wider strategy that I think that there's some people that won't care, but there's clearly a lot of people that do care and that are offended. We talk about reputational damage. They've just taken that to the next level on a global scale. I don't know. Someone's getting fired. Probably their branding agency is getting fired.
Yeah, but someone's signed off on that. Right from the very top, they've signed off on that, and the CEO is but how if they have missed the mark, how has it got that far? Missing the mark. Is it just the classic where Coke got rid of Coke? They'll have to bring back in Jag Classic.
Exactly. I think there's a lot to learn there from a recruitment perspective. I think a lot of the time in the early days when you're a startup scale-up recruiter, you can get caught up in the branding side of things. And, it's an important part, like we were saying to Tim earlier, but you can overthink it. I think a certain stage, early days, you just need to put that to one side and get billing and get recruiting and building revenue and building your business. I think when you get there are levels in recruitment agencies. And I think when you get to the sort of 25 staff and above is where branding and marketing really does become actually quite important, and you're playing a different game, a bigger game. But I certainly wouldn't be jumping into any rebranding projects as a recruiter at the moment. There's far more important things to be doing.
I think as a recruiter, the real difficulty you have actually with your brand is you're branding B2C to attract candidates, you're branding B2B to attract clients, and you've also got to get people to come work from you. So how do you balance the employee value proposition, which is probably,
this is the challenge. Yeah, this is the challenge that we all have. I'm not sure if it's a unique challenge, but it's certainly a difficult one, having the three main audiences. And it's being able to put out a consistent message to all of those audiences and to give value. So it's knowing the kind, go back to the hiring side. So it's easy to talk about the candidate audience and the prospects, but the work for us audience and how marketing can impact that. It's all about your values as an agency and your culture. Well, how do I know? How do I know what your culture is and what your values are? If I have a look at your website, it hasn't been updated since 2022 and there's no information on there. This is one of the things that we look at early doors with clients that are looking to scale. People need to understand your culture and your values. It's easily fixed with marketing, with video content and talking about your values to attract the right like-minded people that you want to help, come and build your team. But it's the same with the other two channels. Talking the right language, talking about the problems and how you can help solve them. That's what's going to get people to engage with you.
Do you think content will be king next year?
I don't know. I think it's a difficult time at the moment for content because of AI, and there's been a flood of low quality, poor content. I'm sure you've seen it, and you can pick it up easily now.
I produce lots myself, Hallett.
Yeah. This isn't actually me. I pre-programmed this chatbot to be here earlier, but so I think content is always key. If it solves problems, if it's high quality, there's no point in putting out a ton of AI generated nonsense that people aren't going to engage with. The point we're trying to do is elevate your brand and your authority. Any size of agency, you want to be seen as the market leader. Well, why? Why am I going to believe in you? Why am I going to trust you with helping you grow my business? The content needs to be there for sure, but it needs to be thoughtful and quality. It needs to help solve problems. You need to give me that aha moment. We spoke earlier about that value exchange with a sales funnel. Your content needs to be so good, I'd be prepared to pay for it. That's what you're aiming for. And you can't do that if you flood the market or flood social with AI generated content as such. So I think, more and more people are getting in front of cameras and on videos and doing things like this. So content is just exploding, which is great. But I think it needs to be done in a measured way with quality first over quantity.
I think one of the things I see on my LinkedIn connection requests, I probably get 2 or 3 requests a day from people who are either doing personal branding or digital outreach or will manage your outreach or will bring you leads. And I'm not convinced, if I'm honest.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. It used to work.
And I'm absolutely, I'm fine with people doing it. I'm fine with, but I feel like, okay, the test to me is, would anyone work contingently? So occasionally I'll ask them, great, I'll give you a rev share of everything I generate, crickets. But it's, I think, those firms look good at generating stuff for themselves. The real test is, can they generate it for someone whose business they're not doing? So and I think people who are good at building social media brands are great at building their own brand, but then can they translate that to someone I find it difficult.
It is difficult. So I mean, the LinkedIn outreach used to work brilliantly. We actually used to do it for our clients very successfully. Stopped working probably 2.5, 3 years ago, because everyone is the same as you, Andy. You just get flooded with spam connection requests, spam messages, really poorly thought out. It's just blanket. the same message to everyone, or they're using AI and it's not very effective and it's giving no value. They're coming with the take first approach, which is never going to work. So and ultimately can cause reputational damage if you're doing it. So I wouldn't recommend anyone does that. I would recommend you build your network of relevant people who, when you know your ICP, building your network and then putting out relevant, helpful content and not pitching straight away. You know, it's when you think about it, the sort of the old stuff, the old strategies haven't gone away. They're still there. There are just new tactics and tools which give the idea that you can shortcut things. And there's this magic silver bullet. Oh, I can use AI to just save me a ton of time. You can, but you still got to come back to the old school strategies of like leading with value, being, you know, helpful, thinking about things, and not selling off the bat. It's the same in any industry. So
I definitely found that with the advisory business, and we found it with RecWired as well. That we've been doing the groups for 4.5 years, and it's free. We've got a free tier, and actually, we find that we build the credibility in that, and you know, people, because you know, we turn up every day, we show up. You know, sometimes with prompt content as well if it's a little bit low, but you know, that's 4.5 years worth of investment, and you know, us moderating it, asking questions, QAing people into the group, etc., etc. And it's very, you know, so I often ask companies, what's their differentiator, what's their moat, what couldn't someone starting a desk with a LinkedIn license and a good website and a good story beat you to as well? So you know, I often do say to people, what makes you different?
Yeah, but you've been consistently putting in those reps for 4.5 years, and it might be difficult for you to see what the ROI with that is. But what you don't see is people out in the recruitment community going, you should talk to Andy at RecWired. What they're doing is amazing. They're giving this free value. They're consistently doing it day after day after day. I've learned this. You should check them out. You just see someone join. So, you know, going back to the ROI piece, it's difficult. But you consistently show up. That's elevating your brand, that you're consistently showing up for your members.
I think what's been interesting actually is I do agree with AI. AI is, I put a post on this morning answering someone. I think the people who get the most out of AI are going to be the ones that use it to replicate the processes that are low value and spend more time on the high value processes, like talking to people. So a really good example, I used AI to we dumped 4.5 years worth of data around our groups into ChatGPT and said, what are the 3 common themes? Now that would have taken me I probably knew it, and it would have taken me time to summarize it and do it and write it. But as long as you're saying this is something we've done, this is a result of data, that's fine. And that saved me a boatload of time. I wrote an article for Contractor UK, which will publish in the next couple of days. And that article probably took me 25 years worth of knowledge. Took me an hour to write, but it was. And so I think there's a time and a place, and I think people have to realize that people get that you'll use these things, these automations for efficiency, and people value that. But I don't think you can pretend that automations are authentic. That's the big difference.
I was at a recruitment event in the summer with a couple of hundred recruiters in the room, and AI, of course, was a hot topic. And we were talking about the people that I was talking to at the event. I was saying, I think it's really important for a recruiter to be having this conversation with your clients and with your prospects about how you're planning to use AI, how you're using it already for the benefit of them. So we're going to be speeding up our process. We're going to be getting higher quality candidates. We're going to be presenting fewer candidates that are higher quality. The time to hire is going to come down. You know, these are the benefits to you. And having those conversations now, because if you're not, your competitors probably are, and your prospects and your clients said they're really interested in them and their problems and how you can solve them. AI has to be a part of that conversation, because if you're not doing it, I'm going to use someone else who's going to give me a better service. So I think you need to be having these conversations immediately if you're not doing it already.
I definitely agree. Last few minutes. Any more questions? Push them through, and we'll do our very best to answer. What does 2025 look like? Are we going to have a better year?
I hope so. Yeah, I think so. I think, we said at the beginning, it's been a mixed year for many. Like you, I talk to a lot of recruiters on a daily basis. The feeling is it's picking up pretty well. I actually had someone last week, it was last week, saying it's been their best year ever out of the last 10. Which was quite interesting.
Were they an insolvency practitioner?
No. So in hospitality recruitment, best year ever, scaled up to 20 staff, hiring another 20 next year. So things are picking up. On the rec side, which is the beginning, the smaller startup scale-up side of the industry, it's been picking up pretty well in the last 3 months consistently. So I think it's going to be a better year. I think people need to be prepared. I think it has been a case of survival for many this year. Got to be better next year. The signs are there.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think the industry is certainly downsized a bit, or sort of right-sized probably. I think those who have worked in this market, if they've stuck around, will benefit from learning to sort of forage and hunt like they've had to in this year. And I think anyone who's sort of grown up in this market will enjoy ultimately what is to come. So I'd agree. And I think the other thing is, and I think another reason it's a real time to invest in marketing right now, and invest in your people as well, is I think people are going to look to grow back differently. I think it's gone. I think gone are the days of probably people pile in headcount, then turn off headcount and get rid of headcount. I think my advice to anybody, this has been it's probably not as bad as 2008, 2009, but it's a real opportunity to learn how to learn the lessons of hyperscaling in maybe 21, 22, and what would you do different? And if you can do that, put in place those solid foundations, those building blocks, and grow on the basis of that. But I really like your idea around the websites, your fulcrum, I guess your CRM. So question from Andy Foote, is Hung Lee's Brain Food newsletter still the best resource for the latest market trends? I'm not sure. I haven't read it in a while, if I'm honest. I'm on the list. It comes in, so not sure I can comment on that, Andy, if I'm honest. But Hung's a great guy and always super interesting stuff. I tend to feel he's more for the in-house guys, maybe, but that's just my take on it.
Can't help you there, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Not made your it's not made your top 100 podcast listens.
No.
Fair enough. Is what it is. He does get a bigger audience than me, let's be honest. So that's fine as well. So closing thoughts. Alex, if people want to do anything, you're going to do a special offer for RecWired members. Based on what we chatted about today.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you are now thinking about re-engaging, if you've been on pause from a marketing perspective, now's the time. So if you want to talk to me, we can have a 45-minute strategy call for free. And I won't pitch you, I won't try and sell anything. We'll just talk about your agency, come up with some ideas and get some of the basics in place.
Is that the top of your funnel? That's the top of your sales funnel. So
Correct.
There we go.
No, I promise. No pitching. We just value for RecWired customers for sure. Book a call with me. You DM me on LinkedIn or find me on addictivity.com and you can book a call and we'll give you a 45-minute strategy session and get you on your way.
We'll put your Calendly link in here as well.
Cool.
It will be attached to this article, and I'll push it out in the groups afterwards. So without any more questions, right? I shall let you get on with the rest of your day. Thanks so much for taking time. It's always a pleasure to chat to you, and I think your background means you look at recruitment in a slightly different way to a lot of people, and it's very interesting to sort of hear your take and your view, but also because of your other hats, understanding how other industries do this really well as well. So it's great to see. So thanks so much for your time, and look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Andy.
Cheers.